You are watching Hillsborough Television, programming that keeps you informed about the services and activities of your county government.
Welcome to Beyond Today, the program that addresses the future of our community through conversations with people who are working today for a better tomorrow. I'm Ray Charmonti, your host for Beyond Today and Assistant Executive Director for the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission. In our last program, we discussed stormwater runoff issues. Today, we will discuss the major issues of schools in our community, from the siting of schools to determining future growth. Our guest today is Randy Poindexter, Assistant Superintendent for Administration, Hillsborough County Schools. Mr. Poindexter was our guest when we were focusing on our vision goals. We've been hearing a lot about new issues, the siting of schools and other educational issues, including planning for where they would go and how we keep up with the growth in our community. Randy, you were on before. I'd like to go in a little bit of your background and how you came to the position that you have now to give our audience a little bit of an understanding of where your roots are, I guess, in the community.
Well, Ray, I am an original Floridian. Actually was born and raised in Key West, Florida, but grew up in Florida and have lived in Florida all my life. I've been in the public school system for 29 years. During that 29 years, I have been a teacher, taught junior high school and senior high school mathematics for a lot of years. Earned a master's degree from the University of South Florida and got into school administration. I was a high school assistant principal, then went on to be a principal, came to the district office as a general area director, and now am assistant superintendent for administration. And in that capacity oversee the day-to-day operations of the 168 schools in our school system. So 29 years in public school education, and I live in Brandon and have lived in Brandon for the past 25 years, so very familiar with Hillsborough County and the growth issues that come with it.
I can tell that's quite impressive. I can see you've been around Florida a while and you understand all the changes going on in education. I kind of wanted to open up and talk a little bit about those changes. You were on, I guess, our program about a year and a half ago, and so many things have happened in that last year and a half as I think about it. I remember one of the issues was there was a scarcity of resources. Can you kind of tell us what's happened in the last year and a half, 2 years to address that?
Ray, it's a good question. 2 years ago we talked about growth, and at that point had very little money to address building new schools to handle the influx of new students in the area. Of course, in 1996, the voters of Hillsborough County passed the community investment tax, and the school system is now receiving dollars from that community investment tax. And we're very pleased to say to the voters that we indicated with that money our first priority would be to get Bloomingdale and Gaither off a double session, and Bloomingdale High School will return to single session in August when we open our new Riverview High School there that we've built with those community investment tax dollars. The other issue that I'm pleased to say is our Florida legislature convened a special session back in November recognizing the issue of the unprecedented and dramatic growth in the state of Florida, especially in just 2 or 3 of the high growth counties, Hillsborough being one of them. And the legislature, after a week or so, a special session, came up with funding sources to give additional dollars to the Hillsborough County school system to handle the growth, so that at least we can begin to build new schools to deal with the influx of new students. So since our last conversation, we've been fortunate that our local taxpayers have assisted us with a community investment tax, and we're fortunate that our legislative delegation has assisted us in obtaining some funds from the legislature. So good news is we've got some money now to build some schools, and now we're in the hunt for school sites as we look to the future for those schools.
Now, as you talk about building new schools, what kind of numbers are we talking about, say, over the next 5 years? What are you anticipating?
Well, we know that in the next 5 years, just looking at our growth and looking at the numbers we have now, we could easily build 12 to 15 schools, and it still wouldn't be enough, but that's as quickly as we can build schools to obtain sites, do architectural designs, plan them, and actually do the construction of the buildings, and we will phase those in the priority areas. And we've made the newspaper recently with a decision to put Sickles on double session, and so an immediate priority will be to find a school site to build the school to relieve Sickles, and continuing in the process to find the school site to get Gaither off of double session. So those two are our first priorities, and we're working diligently now to resolve both of those.
We've been meeting on a committee, which is also a new situation recently for the Planning Commission and the School Board in the county. Tell us about this committee that's been organized and what the goal is.
I'm excited about it, Ray, and I give all of the credit to Bob Hunter, Executive Director for the Planning Commission. It was his idea. He contacted us and said, why don't we get the three organizations together, being the Planning Commission staff, the County Growth Management staff, and the Hillsborough County School System administrative staff, and let's get together and talk about issues of growth, siting schools, roads, transportation issues, sewer, water, infrastructure issues, get all of the players together and sit at one table at one time and let us talk to you about our growth of our schools and our demographics and our desegregation plan and satellite areas and cluster plans, and then let you talk to us about the county comprehensive growth plan and where the urban services area are and where you'd like to see us build schools, and then let the county growth management department talk to us about the roads and sewer and infrastructure. And when we put all of us together, when we come up with a site, it's going to be one that, from the school system's perspective, we think is in the right place for boundaries, and one from Planning Commission perspective is in the right place to deal with the comprehensive plan, and one that the Growth Management Department feels is in the right place with water and sewer and roads and infrastructure. And we think it's a win-win-win proposition. Previously, prior to the law that passed in '96, of course, we would select a site, and it would be in the right place for us as far as a school system for our demographics and our children, but it may not be in the right place from the county growth management plan, and it may not be in the right place for roads and sewer and infrastructure. And so it put us in a position of us selecting a site only to have it at some point maybe ruled as inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. If we do it the way we're doing now, Ray, we feel we'll never get a ruling of inconsistency again, because you will be with us, and Gene Bowles and his department will be with us, and with the three working together, we'll move in the right direction. And I just think it's a terrific endeavor. We've had 4 meetings now, and you're part of that, and so we've vowed to meet every Thursday until we find sites to relieve Gaither and to relieve Sickles, and I'm very optimistic that that's going to happen. It's going to happen soon. Then I think what we would do is then start to look to the future. Once we solve the emergency of the 2 double session schools, then we'll start to look globally at where the growth will be in the Hillsborough County area in the next 20 years, what the Planning Commission sees as growth, what the Growth Management Department sees as build out of developments, and we'll start to plan now for schools we would need 20 years from now, and even move in the direction of identifying those sites, and then as the build out occurs, we're ready to purchase those sites and build those schools. So this committee really can help us in the short range, immediately get sites to get 2 schools off double session, and then in the long range help us to plan sites so that never again will we have the money to build the school but not have a site to put it on. So it's been a great process, Ray.
Well, Randy, I share your enthusiasm for this group, and one of the things that I guess I'm most excited about, it seems like the citizens have become involved very upfront in this group. I'd like you to explain a little bit of that to our audience.
It's a very important part of the group. We can sit at a table and make all these great, profound decisions, but we need input from the citizens who are impacted by these decisions, citizens who live in these communities, citizens who have children in the schools that are impacted, citizens that may be of retirement age, but a school building could affect them. We need to hear from them and hear their concerns and hear their thoughts, and many of those citizens have given us some wonderful ideas on possible solutions, and so we felt it was important to have a component of citizens, and at every meeting allow them to have input into every discussion that we've had, and it's really added a new insight into this process, and we've heard some interesting comments, and again, it is an opportunity where they won't be surprised at the end to hear a discussion that we've had. They'll be part of it along the way, and so far it's proved to be very productive.
Do you know what the attendance has been at these meetings? How many people have participated?
Well, we've had from the 3 staffs, each of the staffs generally bring 3 or 4 people. We have a consultant from the school system who's working with us as a planner. The citizen group started small with 4 or 5 people, and I think at our last meeting we were up to about 25. So the citizen participation is increasing as we begin to discuss specific sites. Then you get specific interest in those areas. So for the first 2 or 3 meetings where we traded information on traffic analysis and roads and sewers and talked of possible future growth, that is a global interest, but when we talk specifically about how about this site or this site or this site, then the citizen interest has picked up. So we even mentioned that if it continues to grow, we may need a bigger room for our future meetings, but that's a good sign. That means the interest is there. So
now it seems to be that there might be some flexibility in school boundaries in the future. Is that a possibility?
Sure.
To relook at?
Yeah, absolutely. We when you have a school district that is growing as rapidly as we are, and Ray, I told the viewers last time, and it hasn't changed, we're the 12th largest public school system in the nation, and growing rapidly. We've gained 10,000 new students in 2 years and 30,000 students in about 7 years. When you grow that rapidly, school boundaries can be fluid and can change, and as the growth occurs in certain areas of the county, then the demographics change, and as you build schools, the boundaries can change. And the key to us is to try to site that school where the growth will be, and then try to develop boundaries that would absorb that growth into the new school. And so the boundaries can change, and that's where citizens need to see that, because it becomes an emotional issue when youngsters start at one school and 3 or 4 years later you draw boundaries and they have to go to another school. We recently went through that with the high school that we cited in Riverview, where the youngsters had become very, very involved at Bloomingdale High School, and you have to move boundaries to get a school off a double session. So yes, boundaries can be changed, and the location of those schools can give us an insight ahead of time as to what those boundaries are going to look like.
Great. Well, we'll be coming back in a few minutes to continue discussing our school issues. Thank you. Welcome back to Beyond Today. I'm your host, Ray Shermonti, and we've been discussing the growth of schools with Randy Poindexter. Randy, I'd like to, you talked about boundary changes. Let's get into some specifics on some of the new schools. I believe there are certain areas of Hillsborough County where it's been decided that we really are going to need a new high school. Can you tell us about those areas?
Well, Ray, sure. We know to relieve Gaither High School, we're going to need a high school built probably somewhere north of it, maybe slightly east of Dale Mabry, maybe slightly west of Dale Mabry, but a high school in the north area of north of Gaither, and once a site is decided there, we would look at boundary adjustments that would take students out of Gaither High School to get it off a double session. And that also could include part of the northern boundary of Sickles High School. So it could affect students in the northern area of Sickles High School. And you could, for example, have a boundary that may include the Lutz area and the Keystone area all in one attendance zone for a high school, which would make a natural boundary and a natural fit. To relieve Sickles High School, we'll need another high school, and the high growth area of Sickles is the West Chase area, south and the Town and Country area, and we will look at a high school south and west of Sickles High School. One of the sites that's been proposed to us for consideration there is the old pistol range or gun club site. It's in the right location to take all of the southern growth area out of Sickles High School, and that boundary could affect Jefferson High School, because some of the youngsters who live south of Hillsboro along Memorial that are now traveling to Jefferson, if a site was located at that pistol range site, could be moved to that high school as well. So probably the two high schools that would be built, one would be north of Gaither, somewhere in that north central area along the Dale Mabry corridor, and one could be south and west of Sickles High School in the Town and Country area. And we have the money to build both of those schools. So we're anxious to continue the site process and get those schools built, and it would get Gaither off of double session, and of course Sickles is going to go on double session in August, and it would get it off of double session as well.
Now, after that problem is hopefully taken care of quickly, what is the next area where there's a need for a high school? The
next big area, Ray, that we'll look at with your assistance and assistance from the Growth Management Department would be the New Tampa area. We have a high school there now, Wharton High School, that this year is brand new, so it does not have a senior class. But next year, when we put the senior class in, it will be overcrowded and will continue to grow rapidly because of the construction and new growth in that New Tampa area. We also have a middle school there, Bonito Middle School, that's already overcrowded in its first year, has portables, and will continue to grow rapidly. There still is considerable build-out left in that New Tampa area, and there's development now being platted that would continue to grow. So that will be the next area that we would talk about, and we would try to identify both a high school site to relieve Wharton and a middle school site to relieve Bonito at the same time, and try to build both of them at the same time. We're building a new elementary school there now that would relieve Hunters Green. Hunters Green Elementary School has 1,500 students in an elementary school designed for 900, and we have a new elementary under construction that'll open in August, and that's in the West Meadows area, and that's the elementary that we've named Clark. But we know immediately we will need a third elementary school in that Cross Creek Boulevard area. So we're working now to obtain a site, and we've identified funds to build another elementary that would be in the Cross Creek area that would pick up the construction that will continue along the Cross Creek Boulevard area. So it's a big area, big growth, a lot of single-family homes, a lot of multi-family type apartments, and a lot of people moving in rapidly. So we'll need a high school, we'll need a middle school, and even another elementary school in that same time.
Do you feel comfortable, you mentioned the high school, is the funding available, or will it be available at the time of need?
Yes, it will, Ray. It's a school we identified in the Community Investment Tax year 6 to 10, and because the Community Investment Tax may be coming in at a little higher rate than first anticipated, once we're ready, we'll move that up and go ahead and build that school. So we have the funding for it, and we have the funding for the middle school. We don't have dollars in hand, but we have the potential funding source, and we could accelerate that if need be. So I feel comfortable talking about it, and the site process will be the difficult part. Once we have that, we'll fund it and build it. So we'll start that process as soon as we're finished with a school for Gaither and a school to relieve sickles.
So I guess to summarize that again, basically we will see a new school probably in the Lutz Keystone area, and then a school in Town and Country, and then after that a school in the new Tampa area.
Correct.
As far as high school goes.
Correct. From there, our next area we'll have to look at is Fishhawk. It's a major development in the southeast Brandon area. 7,000 homes planned to be built. There are several builders in the project, and they are all building homes now. So with that build out, we could need 4 elementaries, a middle school, and a high school, all within that one area. And that would drastically affect Durant. Durant is over capacity now. Plant City High School is over capacity now, so we would need to build a high school in that immediate area, and it would take all of that growth and give a little relief to Plant City and Brandon, Durant, depending on how we draw those boundaries. So that would be the next area after we leave New Tampa that we'll look for a high school.
One of the things I've noticed recently is there's been some rehabilitation and redoing of older schools within the city. I know an excellent job was done on Phillips Shore and Ybor City, very compatible architecture. Is that a new trend in making sure that the older schools are kept up to date?
Very much so, Ray. In fact, we're very proud of that. A lot of school districts let their older schools go. And, you know, in Hillsborough County, of our 170 schools, about 50 of them are 62 years of age or older. If they were people, they'd be eligible for Social Security. Those schools look beautiful. You can look at them and go through them, and they're beautiful architecture. They've been maintained and restored, and Phillips Shore is an example of that. Orange Grove is another example. It's under renovation now, and we closed it for a year to completely renovate it, and we'll reopen it this August, and it will maintain the original Spanish-style architecture of the Ybor City area, and yet inside it will be a newly refurbished modern middle school for performing arts students. We have to deal with the growth in our suburbs, but our school board is highly committed to maintaining our existing schools to make sure that they are constantly refurbished and renovated and repaired. And we have some beautiful schools in the Tampa area that have been maintained and well kept. Part of that money that I talked about from the legislature, where they bonded the lotto and gave us $139 million, 25% of that must be spent on refurbishing old schools, and we appreciate that. That's an indication from the legislature that they value the need to remodel and repair old schools as well as building new schools. So the legislature was correct in doing that for us, and we're very proud of our older school buildings and how they're kept. Some of the finest older schools you'll see in the state of Florida are right here in Hillsborough County.
I'm glad to hear that there's attention being paid to that. I guess that brings up another issue that I have with the design of the newer schools. Is there any way, you mentioned how nice the older schools was, maybe to revise the way some of the newer schools look to fit more in with the neighborhoods? Is that an issue that can be discussed?
It is very much so, Ray, and we hear that everywhere we go to build schools. We want schools to be compatible with the neighborhoods, and that's how schools should be built. And a lot of schools in the neighborhoods, we involve their development councils or their local community councils in the Ybor City area. The various architectural groups help us with designs. When you get into New Tampa area, they have development councils that will let review our plans and design, and we try to build schools that are compatible with the development in which they reside. And the older schools look like schools you and I went to. When you see some of the older schools, you think as a child, I'd like to go to that school. That's the building I like. Some of the newer schools don't look like that. They look like an office building or a doctor building or a dental building or something. And that's a sensitive issue because we want our schools to be user-friendly. And, you know, it may look user-friendly to me, but to a 6-year-old child, when they get out of a car and look at it, it scares them. And so we appreciate your comment, and we want it to be compatible with the neighborhood. And you have some buildings that look fine in the neighborhood they're in, but you wouldn't want to move it, for example, to Lutz or Keystone or an area like that where there's an entirely different setting and an entirely different expectation of a compatibility issue with the neighborhood. So we agree with you.
Does Hillsborough County now have a limit to size? I know there's a lot of debate about the size of schools, and some counties have built very, very large schools. But what is our policy on size right now?
Generally, we want an elementary school to house 900 students. We want a middle school to house 1,100 students, and a senior high school for about 2,000 students, and that's the size that we build. The size is optional on the part of the school board. The school board can determine how big they want a school to be, and our school board has given us that direction. You're right, there are other counties that have built very large schools. Dade County has high schools for 5,000 students. We don't feel that's a school of that size has merit, and so we would never build a school like that. 2,000 is about as big as a high school that we would want.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that that is a consideration, because I do think size has a relationship to the neighborhoods that we're in.
You're correct.
I'm Ray Shermonte, your host for Beyond Today, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Again, we talked about schools today. Next week we'll be talking about Hillsborough River planning. Again, thank you for tuning in.